Welcome to America, the freest country in the entire world, which we know is true because it's a thing that people say, and you might actually believe that until you try to build housing somewhere or drink alcohol in public. But unfortunately, America is not the freest country in the world. In fact, according to some, it's barely in the top 20 freest countries. But the world is a diverse place. In one country's freedom is another country's criminal violence violation, and there are wide swaths of activities that are perfectly normal in other countries but also very, very illegal in America. So today let's look at some international liberties that could get you fined or locked up if you tried them stateside. And some of these foreign freedoms may surprise you. Let's start with a truly evil and dastardly product, one that actually specifically targets children. I'm, of course, talking about Kinder eggs. Now, we like to say that children are the future, and here in America, the moment we find out that something puts children in danger, legislators pull out all the stops to ensure that we try to keep our kids safe. And that's why America has stood firm to cracking down on a grave and terrible threat to children's health and safety posed by toy-filled chocolate eggs. Kinder Surprise eggs, which famously contain a yellow capsule which contains a small toy, have been a beloved staple for children around the world ever since the product's introduction in 1974 by Ferrero, an Italian company. But in the United States, these toy-filled treats have been classified as dangerous, illegal contraband. Now, although you can find Kinder Surprise eggs in Canada and Mexico, don't try to bring them into the country or you risk serious fines. In 2011, Customs and Border Protection, the CBP, seized more than 60,000 Kinder eggs from travelers, baggage and international mail shipments, more than twice that number from 2010. This caused the CBP to issue a press release in 2012 warning people to try to stop sneaking chocolate eggs into the country. The problem is the small plastic toy inside the Kinder egg. While sold in many countries, this product is banned from the US because young children can choke on it. Now, a few months after the CBP released that statement, a married couple from Seattle was detained at the Canadian border when the pair was caught with 6 Kinder eggs from Vancouver. The couple was unaware that they were in possession of illegal ovarian contraband and was even more shocked that each egg carried a penalty of $2,500 per egg. Now, luckily for that couple, they were let off with a warning. Now, there have been 7 reported child deaths between 1989 and 2016, a relatively tiny number in the face of billions of eggs sold. And furthermore, the packaging warns parents that the eggs are not suitable for kids under the age of 3. And supervision is recommended. While Americans remain deeply divided on a wide variety of issues, there's one thing that most of us can agree on, and that's that life begins at cheese. Over the last 40 years, our love of cheese, much like our waistbands, has grown. Between 1977 and 2020, we Americans have increased our annual cheese consumption from 16 pounds to 40 pounds every year. So, needless to say, we Americans love our cheese, whether it's on pizza, burgers, or in the form of 64 Jesus-infused slices of American cheese. But if you're taking a cheese tour of the world, be careful what you bring back to the United States, because your love of cheese might just put you in legal jeopardy. In fact, many raw, soft cheeses from France, like Bleu de Gex Roquefort or Reblochon, are illegal in the United States due to the FDA's strict cheese production regulations. Under these rules, cheeses made with raw, unpasteurized milk is illegal to import or sell in the United States unless it has been aged for at least 60 days. The FDA has also cracked down on certain cheeses just because they contain too many live insects. That's the case with Casu Marzu, a traditional Sardinian sheep's milk cheese that's potentially infested with live maggots. Casu Marzu, which literally means rotten cheese, gets its special flavor from being left to rot out among swarms of fly larvae. And while I'm told this hellish-looking cheese is actually quite delicious, it turns out that eating maggots is actually a tremendous health risk, earning the cheese the nickname the world's most dangerous cheese. And as a result, Casu Marzu is not only illegal in the US, but in the entire European Union. So what are the consequences of contraband cheese? Well, the failure to declare food products on your customs forms can result in fines of up to $10,000, and your unlawful cheese will be seized. But be forewarned, there is a thriving black market for cheese in the United States, and illegal cheese is very much on the government's radar. But unless you're a large-scale cheese smuggler, you're probably not looking at any jail time. Let's leave the food world and get into something that probably makes a little bit more sense. Now, a source of pride for the baby boomer generation is that everything was dangerous and no one seemed to care. Yes, that golden area where we lined our walls with cancerous asbestos. Medical professionals smoked in hospitals, and people sold chemistry sets to children that contained real uranium. So, of course, as a society, we used to let kids hurl giant darts into the air with impunity and call it a national pastime. That's the story of lawn darts, which have been illegal in the United States since 1988 after being linked to thousands of injuries and the deaths of at least 3 children. Lawn darts, known as javelin darts, or jarts, was a popular lawn game in the mid-20th century. Gameplay was actually quite straightforward. Players would take turns tossing giant darts into a circle placed about 35 feet away. Now, unfortunately, throwing a giant metal dart is a tremendous safety hazard, and government regulators eventually began to take notice. The U.S.'s first attempt to outlaw the game was strenuously opposed by dart manufacturers who fought the proposed FDA ban in court. In 1970, manufacturers actually won a compromise that would allow the sale of lawn darts so long as it was, 1, only marketed to adults. Then 2, the product was no longer sold in toy stores, and 3, the product contained warning labels alerting consumers to keep it out of the reach of children. But unfortunately, these compromise measures were insufficient to prevent tragedy for aerospace engineer David Snow.
In the hall, in the bathroom, it doesn't matter to me. I'll meet with the guy anyway. Every day we wait, there's a possibility another child's going to be killed, like my little girl. Is that your favorite puppy? No. Huh?
In April 1987, Snow's 7-year-old daughter Michelle was killed by a lawn dart thrown by one of her 9-year-old brother's playmates in the backyard of their home in Riverside, California. The dart hit her head with approximately 23,000 pounds of pressure per square inch, and Snow's daughter died 3 days later. The grieving father then made it his mission to lobby public officials to take lawn darts off the market for good. Snow brought his complaint to the Consumer Product Safety Commission, who were persuaded to investigate Snow's claims. The commission discovered that over a period of 8 years, lawn darts had sent 6,100 people to the emergency room. 81% of those cases involved kids aged 15 or younger. Half were 10 or younger, and many had suffered permanent injury, disability, or even death. In 1988, the commission voted 2-1 to prohibit the sale of all lawn darts and have them removed from store. The sale of all lawn darts and had them removed from stores in time for that year's Christmas, and Canada also outlawed lawn darts in July of 1989. Now, if you want to play traditional lawn darts, you'll have to hop on a plane and visit the European Union where the game is still legal, but here in the US, you can find a legal version with a modified plastic blunt tip that replaces the sharp metal tip. Now let's go to something that's arguably even more dangerous, smoking. Now, for most of the 20th century, cigarette smoking was glorified as the ultimate embodiment of the American West. Things like tough guys, rebels without a cause, in advertising, doctors endorsed their favorite brands. But this image of health and sex appeal slowly began to change starting in 1964 after the U.S. Surgeon General stated definitively that yes, smoking tobacco can be fatal.
Just last week, there was a major breakthrough when Liggett agreed to settle its lawsuit. It became the very first tobacco company to acknowledge that tobacco can be edible.
And research shows that flavored cigarettes largely appeal to and are disproportionately used by those under 18 years of age. So to help combat youth smoking, in 2009, the FDA banned the sale of flavored cigarettes including cloves, cinnamon, candy and fruit flavors. But the US is not alone here. There are many countries with policies banning some or all types of flavored cigarettes include Canada, Brazil, Ethiopia, Uganda, Senegal, Niger, Mauritania, and 28 member states of the European Union, Moldova, Turkey, and Singapore. As for everyone else, well, not only are flavored cigarettes completely legal in the vast majority of countries, but the US ban on cloves actually created an international incident. In April 2010, Indonesia, the world's top producer of clove cigarettes and the source of the vast majority of those smoked in the US, filed a trade dispute with the World Trade Organization. In its claim, Indonesia argued that the US ban illegally discriminated against foreign products of flavored tobacco and created an unlawful advantage for domestic tobacco manufacturers. In September 2011, the WTO agreed, finding that the ban was indeed discriminatory because it prohibited clove cigarettes while allowing the sale of American menthol cigarettes. This ruling gave Indonesia the right to retaliate until either the US changed its law to comply or the two sides reached a settlement. And in 2014, the two countries reached a final settlement on the issue, ending their dispute. Now, a decade after the flavored tobacco ban, public health advocates seem to have been vindicated. A 2020 study published in the Journal of Adolescent Health found that the flavor ban was effective at reducing cigarette use among young people. In April of 2022, the FDA took additional steps against flavored tobacco products by proposing a ban on the sales of menthol cigarettes and all flavored cigars. In this proposal, the FDA argued that these actions had the potential to reduce disease and death by, quote, reducing youth experimentation and addiction and increasing the number of smokers that quit. Public comments will continue through July of 2022, but Kinder Surprise eggs are already banned, so the hard work has already been accomplished.